Welcome to EddyEd TV.
Don't it feel good when you've been in his presence?
When I was in college, I couldn't afford the extravagant spring break vacations to Mexico that all the Greek life people went on. Because of this, I spent my first 3 spring breaks on campus, which I actually didn't mind too much. By the time spring break rolled around my senior year though, I realized that it was basically my last chance to get the spring break experience I'd been missing out on. Mexico was still out of the question since I'd still be paying everything myself. Eventually, my girlfriend Allie found a decently priced Airbnb that sounded pretty appealing. We figured we could turn it into a couple's getaway of sorts, so we invited her best friend Laya and her boyfriend Calvin. We were all super excited since we had never been on a vacation together before. The place we had picked wasn't your typical spring break Airbnb though. It was nestled in a really secluded woodsy area in Lake County, California. There was a hot tub, an exposed fireplace, an antique-style record player, and some cots for stargazing outside. It was honestly perfect. The place was about 2.5 hours away, so we'd get a nice and relaxing drive on the way. Unfortunately, Calvin drove a really cramped Mini Cooper, meaning the girls had to squeeze into the back seat. He was honestly pretty insecure about his car and would get annoyed when one of us would make a comment about it, which was a pretty funny detail. As terrible as that car was, it was a drop top, which was really nice. We pulled in around 8 p.m. after it was already fully dark out. I can't even lie, the place looked a little scary late at night with all the lights off. When I say it was in the woods, I mean it. The trees blocked the view of all but one of the neighboring houses. The first night was really chill. We hung by the fireplace with a bottle of wine and played some board games. We wanted to go in the hot tub, but Calvin was complaining, so we didn't. He was honestly being pretty pouty for some reason, but we all just assumed there was something on his mind. The next night was better. We convinced Calvin to join us in the hot tub for some drinking games. The hot tub was connected to the back of the house, but inside its own little room, the walls of which were just screens. We were playing Never Have I Ever with some music blasting, having a lot of fun. We were all more than a little buzzed at that point. And just then though, a flash of bright light lit up the spa room. If it had been raining, we would have assumed it was lightning, that's how bright it was. I quickly turned the music off, and the 4 of us stared at each other, nervous to say anything. I quietly got out of the hot tub and made my way from the spa room to the back deck. I looked out into the woods, but it was too dark to see anything. Out of nowhere, I started hearing a clicking sound coming from the woods. A few seconds later, I heard another one from a different direction, and then a whistling sound started up. The sounds kept coming, clicking and whistling from too many directions to keep track of. I yelled for Calvin and the girls to run inside, and I followed them into the house. The 4 of us huddled in the living room, not sure of what to do. I thought maybe it was a dumb prank or someone messing with us, which is why we didn't call the police right away. A few minutes later though, someone started banging on the front door. The girls were hysterical, so I told Calvin to call the police while I grabbed the biggest knife in the kitchen, ready to protect everyone should it come to that. I yelled in a deep voice that I had a gun, which was obviously just a bluff. The banging stopped. Calvin said the police were on the way, but out there in the middle of nowhere, they could have been miles from us.
Miles.
We waited in silence for a few minutes. It was the tensest moment of my life. Just when we thought the nightmare was over, one of the living room windows shattered. Someone had thrown a massive rock through it. The girls screamed, and I told everyone to run upstairs and lock the door. I stayed downstairs, bracing myself for a fight.
Hey, listen.
By some miracle.
Listen, I understand you want to be the superhero, man, but this is not a movie. This is not a movie, man. This is real life out in these streets. So if you get sliced up, ain't no pauses or rewinds. This is it.
No one came charging through the window. Eventually, I ran over to inspect the window and noticed there was a piece of paper taped to the rock that had been thrown. Scribbled in black ink were the words, "Go away, you shouldn't be here." The police arrived shortly after and did a thorough search of the property. They of course found nothing. We weren't sticking around to wait for them though. We were packed up and out of there that night. The Airbnb hosts actually ended up giving us a refund, although they refused to talk about the situation. My girlfriend thinks there's something the owner wasn't telling us. Maybe she's right. I guess that could explain why the place was so cheap.
Yeah. Yeah, hold on.
Either way, I don't think I'll be taking any vacations or using Airbnb anytime soon.
Yeah, see, I think what was going on. I think what was going on is the Airbnb owner could have been in cahoots with the people, or could have been the people terrorizing guests so that they can like leave or whatever, or like get scared and leave. And maybe they've been lucky to not get asked for a refund, and probably they just decided, hey, if people don't ask for a refund, we can get paid, and they shorten their stay, more money in a thing. I don't know, but I'm thinking, what if that is the case? Like some Airbnb hosts purposely try to scare their people away in order to kind of make more money in a sense. I'm just throwing a theory out there. Do people do that? I think some people have tried. You know, people try anything. That's what we got to remember. Is like, hey, somebody has tried the craziest thing you can think of and gave it a chance. So I wouldn't put it past it as a possibility. But also, what if the owner, knew about the place, and that's why it actually was cheaper? Could be another reason why it was the price it is, so that people can actually want to go there and not look at the price and be like, it's too expensive, whatever, and try to avoid it. But nevertheless, vacationing at any place that's like kind of remote in like woods and things like that, that is a pretty crazy thing to do, especially if you're not strapped up. If you don't got the gats for the attack, I don't think you should be doing that. But either way, man, you got to still put yourself in the best situation.